Hello and welcome to storytelling. You'll allow me to do this if you truly love me. How many husbands have heard their wives say those things? During what had begun as a romantic dinner to celebrate our 5th anniversary, my wife said those words to me. My entire world seemed to collapse at that point. How did we arrive at this point, then? My stunning 29-year-old wife recently told me that she wants to have extramarital sex with other men. She stated it clearly and concisely. For me, at least, it was clear-cut and easy. I had arranged a fantastic dinner at one of our preferred eateries, a classier establishment featuring real white tablecloths and a respectable wine selection. Even after all the clues she had given since her birthday, I knew she wanted a diamond necklace, so I bought it for her. That stupid necklace cost me almost $1,000, and I need my money back. I could tell during the meal that she was anxious about something because our normally easygoing conversation felt a little forced. She appeared anxious and preoccupied. Her gaze was darting around the space as though she was trying to find someone or something. When she spoke to me, she would normally look me in the eyes, but tonight she was more interested in the table, her wine glass, and pretty much anything else than me. She eventually got around to what she really wanted to talk about after we had finished the main course and were sipping on another glass of wine. Honey, I have to talk to you about something that has been on my mind. I need to take action because it's been on my mind for a while. I paused and set down my wine glass. What topic was she discussing? Her voice became quieter. When she wanted to talk about something important, she would speak in that tone. What exactly was it that bothered her? My first instinct was that she was going to tell me she was ready to talk to me about having a family. We had discussed the idea of having children before, many times over the past 3 years, in fact, but we had made the decision to put it off until after we were more successful in our careers and had accumulated a larger nest egg to cover the costs. Now that we had accomplished that, I was eager to continue growing our family. Was she prepared? I sincerely hoped that this was the topic she was interested in discussing, but her lack of eye contact suggested that perhaps it wasn't. Usually, you would have a big, stupid grin on your face and just make eye contact if you wanted to talk about having babies. What on earth was happening? My 5-year wife Andrea swallowed and said, "Honey, I want to do something that I'm not sure you're going to agree with right now, but it is something that I have thought about very carefully, and it's kind of important to me. I have to take a closer look at my life away from our relationship. I know that by allowing myself to freely explore my identity, I will be able to be a better wife to you. Therefore, I need some freedom to do so." What? To say I was perplexed, mystified, upset, and angry would be an understatement. I was all of those things at once, to differing degrees. How the heck? What are you talking about, dear? I said that while placing my hands palm down on the table and giving her a direct look. I looked at myself, perplexed. She answered without turning to face me. "Rob, I need to look into relationships other than yours. To avoid upsetting you and making you feel strange, I would like your consent in advance." I could feel the veins in my neck pressing against the collar of my shirt, and my blood pressure was starting to rise rapidly at this point. "Just what kind of relationships are you talking about, Andrea?" "Well, I suppose they might be with all kinds of people." My breathing had become labored, my lungs refusing to take in air, and my confusion was growing by the second. "Could you be a tad more specific, please?" I held my breath and spoke in a direct manner. "Well, I think I might want to see some other men." "How the heck? Andrea, what are you talking about? Do you want me to approve of your affair before you go out and have sex with other men?" Christ Jesus! I could probably hear some of the other diners at the restaurant over my increasingly raised voice. "Honey, please lower your voice. It is not necessary for everyone to hear what we are discussing." She wanted to surprise me with this little bit of information here in public, I realized, so that I wouldn't yell at her. Yes, she really did ambush me. Got me nicely. Right then and there, I wanted to puke that pricey dinner. My tummy was knotted up like crazy. I had no idea what to say other than, "Why? Andrea, why do you feel the need to see other men?" "Well, I think I need the space to explore myself. Discover who you are? Andrea, what the hell does that mean? Are you implying that you wish to go have sex with different men? Are you going to abandon me? I'm not going to leave you, sweetie. I have many reasons for doing this, but know that you are my soulmate and that I adore you deeply. I want us to grow old together and start a family, but I need to feel certain things that I'm not feeling right now. Please allow me to investigate those matters. That's it. Rob, I would be yours and yours alone for a few months at most, and then I would become your wife once more. I swear. All right, this was about the worst thing my uninformed mind could conjure up. During our anniversary dinner, my 5-year wife made the announcement that she wanted to be allowed to have sex with other men. She wants me to just accept all of this and sit back while she does all of this, saying that she will make a better wife of me and that we will get back together later when she is content. My mouth dropped open in shock. I received no reply. My lungs were empty and my brain was dead. I got up, set my napkin down gingerly on the table, took up my wine glass, took a sip of what was left in it, set the glass down gingerly, turned around, and left the restaurant. Honey, where are you going? I don't know, but I think you need to take a cab home. After leaving the restaurant, I located my car, turned on the engine, put it in drive, and just went for a drive. I was clueless about my destination. The pain seemed to be spreading to almost every part of my head, starting in the back. I felt like my head was cracking open. I couldn't remember the time or my location. When I woke up in the car the following morning, I couldn't remember where I was. I yawned, stretched my arms, and got out of the car. I attempted to remember everything that had occurred the previous evening, believing it to be a nightmare. I desperately needed to urinate and then have a big cup of coffee. I knew that before I went home, I had to figure out what I needed to do. I stepped outside my car, peed in the bushes a few yards away, got back in, started the engine, and drove off to find that coffee I desperately needed. I located a small diner, ordered coffee and some breakfast, and started formulating my plan of attack for this problem. My wife could not simply go out and start seeing other men. No, that would definitely mean the end of our marriage. I was starting to suspect that she wasn't the woman I had thought her to be, even after what she had told me the previous evening. Perhaps she had experienced a nervous breakdown and was dreaming of an unreal scenario. I was ignorant. I'm just a very confused husband, not a psychiatrist. I realized that at some point last night, I had turned off my cell phone when I checked it. I had a number of text messages and missed calls from Andrea when I turned it on. She was curious about my whereabouts, my well-being, and my anticipated return date. I realized at this point that even though I knew I would have to go home at some point today, I never wanted to. I didn't pick up her phone or text. I drank a few cups of coffee, ate some eggs and bacon, and roughly planned out what I needed to do. It's time to return home. Andrea opened the front door and came out to greet me as soon as I pulled into our driveway. Where have you been spending the night, honey? I was terribly concerned about you. I assumed you were involved in an accident and were possibly in a ditch. Andrea, I'm going to take a shower and get cleaned up, and then you and I are going to talk, I said, shooing her off as she attempted to plant a kiss. As you told me last night, we must discuss your plan to explore yourself. I shoved past her, ascended to the bedroom, and changed out of the outfit I had worn all night. I reviewed part of what I wanted to tell her while taking a long, hot shower. I had to take action to find out if my wife was still with me or if this was her way of saying goodbye, even though I wasn't sure how it would turn out. Perhaps she was just trying to gauge my level of commitment to her with this. What was going through her mind was unknown to me. I believed that I loved her. I wed her. She even confessed her love for me. To celebrate our large wedding, we traveled to Europe. I have never cheated on her, and I don't consider other women. She doesn't appear to want to follow suit, though. No, master. Thank goodness, we are childless. Perhaps we wouldn't even try. What transpired over the course of the following few days and weeks would decide that. I went to the kitchen, made myself another cup of coffee, got out a notepad and pen, and changed into some clean clothes. Andrea was seated at the island in the kitchen. She was keeping a close eye on me. Though I was a mess inside, I tried to appear calm. Once I had my coffee, I took a seat. "Okay, Andrea, tell me again why you want to have relationships outside our marriage." "Honey, I need to feel like my femininity is valued. My needs don't seem to be being satisfied at the moment. I must be able to identify my needs and determine whether I can meet them on my own. You must ascertain what your needs are because, at this point, you are unaware of them. Are you going to be away from me for a while to figure out what you want?" "No, darling, I'm not heading out. I'll remain right here with you in our house, but I must be free to set my own hours and do as I please." "When do you want to start your exploration and your new schedule, Andrea?" "Well, any time would work, I guess. Are you okay with me doing this?" "No, Andrea, I disagree with all of this nonsense. We promised one another that we would be partners and lovers for life when we got married. You want to go find other lovers right now. What on earth am I expected to think? I believe you wish to end our marriage." "Honey, that isn't how it is. Since we haven't spoken for a few years, I need to rekindle our connection. We put in a lot of work into everything we do. Our playing has decreased over time. You don't seem to value me as much as you did after our marriage. Thank you for your time. All that I do, Jesus, is for you. In order for us to be able to afford a family and all the things we discussed when we got married, I have been working extremely hard. For heaven's sake, this house is nearly paid for. I needed to control my temper a little bit because I was getting agitated and worked up, and losing it would not be good for anything." "Are you going to have sex with other men?" Before anything else, I had to get this out in the open because it was the showstopper. "Honey, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. If it's appropriate and the right person is involved, I might want to have sex." "So you are planning on cheating on me?" "Rob, it's not like I'm betraying you. If you are aware of it, it is not cheating." Well, at that point, my blood pressure was through the roof, and I had to take a deep breath and let it out slowly to keep my concentration. "I see." I wished my coffee was much stronger as I waited a moment before taking a long sip. I had to force myself to control my feelings and finish this. "To be clear, Andrea, you intend to go out and meet other men, go on dates with them, and most likely have sex with them. You also intend to remain in this house while you take care of that. Have I gotten it right thus far?" "Honey, it's not that simple." "I'm not sure, Andrea, it seems fairly straightforward to me. Do you intend for us to engage in any activities together at that time? You realize that you are still a married woman. Are we simply delaying our marriage for a while? Do you really believe that we will continue having sex while you're at it?" "Rob, of course. Me and you make up a family. I want to keep us as a family because I adore you so much. This will only be something I occasionally do to determine what I require for myself." "Andrea, how frequently will you be doing this? Each and every weekend? On 2 separate weekdays? Each and every night? How far will you go in your exploration?" "Honey, I'm not sure yet." "Why does that worry you so much?" "Well, I need to work out what it is I'm going to do while you are off meeting, dating, and having sex with your new boyfriends." "Honey, I don't have a boyfriend. In any case, not just yet." I inhaled deeply and exhaled gradually. I had to work really hard not to break something right before I was about to blow a gasket. "Andrea, before we leave here today, I want to clear up a few things in my mind. Have you truly decided that this is what you want to accomplish? Have you considered the impact this will have on our marriage?" Andrea gave me a nod, but she remained silent when I asked her question. She hadn't really thought about how I would feel about this, I supposed. She hadn't considered the possibility that I wouldn't agree with her plans. Then she actually said it. "If you love me, you will let me do this." I fired back, "If you love me, Andrea, you will not do this." This was my line in the proverbial sand. Honey, I've made up my mind that this is what I'm going to do. You can't talk me out of it. There it was. There was the ultimatum that would shape everything in our future. Our marriage would change from this point forward. She hadn't thought it far enough along to see that being unfaithful, even though you're announcing it beforehand, is a marriage breaker. Now my plan had to take shape. Okay, here are my conditions. They are not negotiable. I laid out what she would have to do if she wanted to fool around on me. You will move out while you do this. I will not live in the same house with you while you date and have sex with other men. If you thought that you were going to bring them here, then you can think again. That is not going to happen. Honey, where am I supposed to live? I suppose you can stay with one of your friends. How about that woman Jessica from school that you were chummy with? You've been spending a lot of time with her? You told me that she was divorced and is alone. Call her and ask her if you can stay with her for a while. If that isn't possible, you can rent a short-term apartment somewhere. You will be responsible for the expenses and utilities and your car payment. Andrea was a teacher. She taught grade 3 at the elementary school. She made a good income. I was a chartered accountant working for a big firm as a forensic auditor and made a good income along with annual bonuses. From what you said, I guess that I'm not giving you everything that you need in our relationship right now. Andrea's head came up, and for the first time, she looked me in the eye. She figured that I was giving in and that she had won the battle. I went on. So if you want an open marriage, then I suppose I will have to be patient while you have your affairs. Are you going to come home to me at the end of all this, Andrea? Honey, of course I am. I love you very much. You're my husband. I want us to have a family. And what am I supposed to do while you are out having sex with other men? Are you expecting me to be faithful to you? Do you expect me to sit at home and wait for you to get done with your boyfriends and then welcome you with open arms and love when you come back? Is that what you think will happen, Andrea? Have you thought at all, even a little bit, what this is going to do to me? I want you as my husband, honey, and only you. Whatever I do while I'm away from you for the next little bit will not mean anything after I come home to you. I want you to be my husband and the father of my children. I thought to myself that this was an odd way to show it. She had already accepted the fact that I wasn't going to just let her parade her boyfriends into our house and have sex under my nose. I suppose she figured that was a win for her. She gets to go party with other men without fear of me interfering. Okay, you figure out where you're going to stay and let me know this week. Right now, we need to do some things here to start. I want you to move your clothes and things to the spare bedroom. I'm not sure that I can share the same bed with you just now. Your plan is too hurtful. I feel like you are leaving me but just haven't said as much, so you tell me what I should think. Andrea didn't answer me, and I figured that she was starting to realize that I was not going to blindly take this. She might have been surprised that I wanted her out of our bed, but what the hell did she expect? She must have thought me a complete stupid chump to figure that I was going to meekly let her run out and screw around and then believe that she was going to come home and pretend that we were a happy couple and have children and carry on with a normal life. Nope. Andrea was friendly with another teacher, Jessica, and I reckoned that the source of some of this nonsense might be her. Jessica was divorced, a grade 4 teacher at the same school where my wife taught. She had been caught by her husband fooling around with several lovers, and he bounced her out the door 2 years ago. Jessica was 35 years old and a good-looking woman with a great body. Her downfall was that she liked to spread her legs for any man who smiled at her. I suspected that Jessica was influencing Andrea's desire to explore herself before we had a family. The reality for me was that if she explored too much, there was not going to be a family, at least not with me. The only thing there would be was a divorce. I got up from the table and started to walk away. Andrea asked, "Is that it, Rob? You want me to move out?" "Yeah, that's it for now. Don't get me wrong, Andrea. I do not want you to do this at all. We made a promise of monogamy to each other when we got married. You're planning on breaking that promise. So what is it that you expect me to do?" Do you expect me to sit quietly while you have sex with other men? If you want an open marriage, then I suppose I get to do the same." Andrea was speechless, and I left before things escalated to a shouting match. I got my car keys and started to leave the house. "Honey, where are you going?" "I'm not sure right now, but don't forget to move your things to the spare room and start looking for that place to stay. Remember that you don't get to fool around on me in our marriage until you move out." I turned and left, shutting the door a lot more forcefully than I normally did. If push came to shove, I was fully prepared to be the one to leave, but since my wife was the one initiating this affair, then she could be the one to have to be inconvenienced. Besides, I figured that it was Jessica who was encouraging Andrea to do this, so she could be the one to take her in. I had to put aside my desire to drive to Jessica's apartment and punch her in the nose. Monday morning, I was up and left for my office before Andrea got up. I had a lot of work to do on my plan. If things went according to Andrea's intentions, I was not going to tolerate her cheating on me. Since she appeared to have made up her mind to end our marriage, then I had to get to work. I was hurt by the fact that she thought she could have sex outside our marriage and that I was stupid enough to stand by, let her do it, and then pretend it was all good if and when she came home. And what if she comes home with some disease or pregnant or both? Nope, not going to happen. Step 1 was a call to my lawyer. My lawyer was a friend of mine who handled the more mundane business that we needed a lawyer to handle, real estate, wills, that sort of thing. I didn't figure that he would handle the divorce work, but he would be able to refer me to a lawyer who does. He did. There was a good divorce attorney at the firm, and my meeting with her was scheduled for that afternoon. It was a difficult meeting, but my new lawyer was a skilled litigator and fully aware of the laws in our state. I didn't want to make this a difficult divorce. In fact, I was very happy with a 50-50th division of all our assets. Neither one of us had much when we got married, and we both had been working full-time to build on our ability to live comfortably and have a family until now, so I was happy to split things down the middle. I'm not a completely heartless prick. Also, fighting for assets would only increase the timelines of the divorce. The assets are not worth staring at a cheating wife. The paperwork would be drawn up and then held until I had proof that my wife was indeed seeing other men. Until then, this was just a preliminary move on my part. The week was slow to go by. I made a point of spending as little time as possible at home and went out every evening, mostly to the gym to burn off stress. I noticed that Andrea was spending a lot of time with Jessica, and she announced on Thursday that she would be staying with her for a couple of weeks until she could find another, more suitable place. I knew it would be a convenient place where she could meet her boyfriends and not have to worry about being interrupted by me. Jessica would likely be entertaining her boyfriends at the same time, so it would be a real party. Jesus! This was it. On Saturday, my wife of 5 years and 1 week confirmed for me her decision to have sex outside of our marriage by packing her things in her car and leaving. She stopped just before she left. "Honey, I don't want to go. Are you sure we can't work something out so I can stay? I love you a lot and I really want our marriage to be better." My God, Andrea. If you loved me at all and wanted our marriage to be better, you would not go through with this. Yes, I want you to stay here at home with me, but I will not allow you to have sex with other men while you're my wife. I love you, but I'm just not going to stand for that. Please come with me to marriage counseling to try to sort out what the problems are, but if you won't do that, then I don't know what I can say. So go. As she was loading her things in her car, I got in my car and went off to the hardware store to get new locks for the house. I changed 3 locks on the house and changed the security code on the garage door opener. Saturday night and all of Sunday, I sat at home staring at the 4 walls, hoping that Andrea would come to her senses and come home. The next week was brutally hard on me. I went to the gym every day that week and took up running again to try and reduce my stress level. At times, I was terribly depressed and wanted to go to her and beg her to come home. Intellectually, I was still having difficulty fathoming the idea that my wife was leaving me to have sex with other men while we stayed married. I felt like a giant failure. Was I that useless that my wife was willing to rub her infidelity in my face? I guess so. I went on the internet to research the psychology of cheating and why spouses cheat on each other. I was amazed to learn that about 40% of all married people cheat on their spouse. I was also amazed to learn that of that group, almost 90% stay in the marriage. Cheating by one or both spouses is most often quietly tolerated by the other partner. Often, there are children to be considered, and it is easier for the other spouse to just accept the infidelity if it is discreet and continue as if it were not happening. Wives who cheat, for the most part, say that they love their husbands and families but are looking for excitement outside the marriage, excitement that they are not getting at home. A lot of the women who have affairs say that home is a lot of work, where the day-to-day grind of keeping a family afloat with all the activities that kids are involved in and the mundane work that occupies their daily lives makes sex and intimacy with their husbands boring. Women want to feel excitement with their lover, who is concentrating on them alone and not talking about kids or errands right after sex. Maybe the key to marriage success was to treat your wife like a cheating spouse, but without the divorce part, just enjoy the sex. Maybe I should go and try to pick up my wife at the club that she and Jessica go to. People cheat on their spouses for a lot of reasons: lack of sex in the relationship, no passion, no connection between the wife and husband anymore, and revenge for the other partner having cheated. Some women have said that they cheat on their husbands to save their marriages. I'm not sure about that one, but that's what they have said to researchers who have studied marital cheating. Marriage is complex, and relationships take work. Open marriages, where it is known by both spouses that they will have other relationships and sex partners, seldom survive in the long term. Emotional bonds are formed, feelings get hurt eventually, and most will divorce. Polyamorous marriages are equally fraught and complex. This is especially so if there are children to be considered. There is always the problem of an STD being introduced into the relationship, so that is a constant threat. My own belief was that monogamy was best in a marriage, and if both partners did not agree with it, then they should not be married. They should look for a different person to be married to or to be in a relationship with. Did I ignore my wife and drive her away? Did I forget to pay enough attention to her while I was doing what I thought I needed to do to build a life for us? Was I wrong? I don't know. I do know that I was unhappy that my wife had left our home to go have sex with other men. She was looking for the things that I supposedly didn't give her. I didn't see her strategy as leading to an improvement in our marriage. The next week went by slowly again. I did not call my wife once, and Andrea only texted me once to ask me to forward her mail to her. She had nothing to say to me that gave any indication that she wanted to stay married. It was all business. Clearly, she was getting on with her plan to find a boyfriend or two to have fun with. I thought about following her from the apartment to wherever she and Jessica went to see who she was meeting. I drove by the apartment several times but didn't stop and decided that I couldn't do that to myself. I had to let her make the decision, otherwise, she would never be my wife again. The longer that this went on, the less chance there was that she was ever coming home to me. The other part of that equation was that the longer she took to come back, the less likely it was that I was going to want her. A month went by, and with little communication between us, Andrea showed up unannounced at the house. When her key didn't work, she rang the doorbell and knocked on the door. I went to the door. "Andrea, what brings you here today?" "Honey, my key doesn't seem to work in the lock." "What is going on with that?" "That's because I changed all the locks," I said, the words with a deadpan expression on my face. Andrea started to come in the house, but I stood in the way to block her. "What do you want, Andrea?" "I came to get a few of my things that I forgot when I moved in with Jess." Again, she didn't come here to see me, it was about her stuff and purely business. She didn't really care about me or what she was doing to me. The hurt that I might have been experiencing was not even a consideration for her. I was clearly just getting in her way. Was she that foolish or delusional to think that I wouldn't care about her sexual activities with other men and eventually take her back? There are some boxes in the garage with things that are yours that I collected up around the house. "Why did you do that, honey?" "I'm coming home in a few months, so there is no need to pack all of my things." I let her in the house, it was, after all, still half hers. We went to the garage, and she could see that there was a dozen or more boxes of things ready for her to take. "How long are you going to live with Jessica?" "She has been really great. I'm going to stay with her for a while. I'm sure that this will only be for a few more months, and then I will be back, and I'll be an even better wife to you, honey. Then we can make a baby or two and be a family." I rolled my eyes at that comment and did an internal grimace. Yeah, right. I wasn't sure just how her other men would make her a better wife and prepare her to be a mother, but somewhere in her twisted logic, probably implanted by Jessica, that is what she wanted to believe. Surely she knew that what she said was foolish. I had other ideas on the whole business. "So, have you found a boyfriend yet?" Andrea blushed red at my question. I knew the answer immediately. "Jess and I have been out on some dates with guys from the club that we go to, but that's all." "Has the sex with your new boyfriends?" Her face was still red, and she busied herself looking through the boxes for the stuff that she wanted. I knew the answer to that question, so I left the garage and went back to the kitchen to have my coffee and read the newspaper. A few minutes later, she came out with a big bag of things and looked around the kitchen. I suppose she was expecting the house to look like a mess with her gone. It was just the opposite. I had hired a maid service to come in 3 times a week to clean the place, and so it looked spotless. She was noticeably disappointed by the lack of clutter, no giant stack of dirty dishes, no pile of empty beer bottles, no mountain of dirty laundry. No, the house was doing just fine, and I was working at keeping myself together so that I didn't lose my mind as I festered on the idea that my wife had left me to go sleep with other men. "Is there anything else you need, Andrea?" I could tell that she wanted to find out what was going on here without her. "So, honey, have you been okay since I began staying with Jess?" "I'm fine. I've been busy with work. I'm on the road a lot." "Honey, are you getting out at all or just staying home here by yourself?" There it was, the great question that I expected eventually. What did I say earlier? What is good for the goose is good for the gander. Time for me to drop a small grenade in her basket and see how she handles it. I've been trying to keep busy. I joined a cycling group that meets twice a week for organized rides. We meet at a start point and ride as a group for 40 to 60 miles. It's a lot of fun. I've been meeting lots of new people there. They're a great bunch. We usually go someplace afterward for a beer and a burger. Riding that far works up your hunger. Between exercising and the stress that she was causing me, I had dropped 15 pounds in the last few weeks. Getting lots of exercise was probably the only thing that saved me from a mental breakdown. I made a point of staying away from too much alcohol. That would not help me at all. "That's nice," she said with a tone that might suggest she was more interested in what I was doing than her response suggested. My takeaway from that was that she wanted to know if I was meeting other women. I figured that as Andrea drove away from the house, she began to think that her plan wasn't working out quite as she had figured. Maybe her loyal husband might just meet another woman and decide that he didn't need to stay married to her. Maybe her plan to find a boyfriend to give her the attention that her husband had not been might have bigger consequences than she thought. I found out that Andrea had been dating 2 guys from the club that she and Jessica went to and had sex with both of them a few times. But so far, they were not interested in her to the point that they wanted to spend quality time with her. After a few hours between her legs, both the guys were happy to take off from Jessica's apartment. Once they were done, both would tell her that they had to go. Both were married and were just out looking for a good time. Andrea was that good time, pump and dump. At the 2-month point, I knew that my marriage was done, and I had to start with the next phase of my plan. Andrea had not contacted me for weeks, so I knew that she wasn't thinking about me or our marriage at all. She was doing whatever it was that she wanted and hadn't expressed any interest or intent to come home. If she did, there would be a whole bunch of conditions attached, and even then, I wasn't sure that I was going to take her back for a good reason beyond what she was doing. I found out that she and one of her boyfriends had taken a vacation to the Dominican Republic during the school break. They had a little getaway to the sun and sand to work on their tans and other things. So if that was her idea of making our marriage stronger through infidelity, well, the crap that Jessica had been selling to Andrea about what a bad husband I had been and how I had ignored my wife had resonated with Andrea before she decided to abandon our marriage. Now she was sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with her disgruntled, divorced friend, and her reputation amongst the other teachers and her family was going downhill. Andrea's mother called me and inquired as to why we had split up after finding out that she had left for the Caribbean with another man. She most likely assumed that we had been at odds. She was shocked and didn't believe me when I told her that her daughter had left me to go have sex with other men. I advised her to speak with Andrea directly to ascertain the truth. Her mom gave her a call. "Andrea, what made you decide to leave your house? What is the situation between Robert and you? Is he causing you any harm?" "No, Mom, he's not hurting me, but he doesn't currently provide me with the thrill I need from a man. I don't feel attracted to Rob. I require that sensation. I must have a sense of worth. I need to feel attracted to someone else right now because I don't feel that way about him. Before Rob and I start a family, I want to enjoy myself a little. I have to finish this now. When I return to him in a few months, he will value me even more, and everything will be well. You'll discover." What Andrea said astounded her mother. "My dear, Robert will not want you as his wife if you have affairs with other men. The easiest way to dissolve your marriage is to cheat on him. Do you not realize that? Mom, I'm sure Rob loves me. He knows I have to get on with this. In a few months, or at most a year, I'll return home, and we'll start a family. There won't be a marriage, a husband to return home to, and most definitely no children with him if Andrea doesn't wake up and go home right away. Do you comprehend what I'm saying? I am aware of Rob's love for me, Mom. I am proficient in my work. Not even her mother could reason with her. According to my logic of what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I made the decision to test my readiness for a fresh start. Now that Andrea had been gone for almost 3 months, it was time for me to move on with my life. I summoned the confidence to ask one of the women I rode with out on a date. All I wanted was some female company and a break from the monotony that had been my life ever since my wife moved out. Every day I would go to the gym, work, cycle, and sleep. Tomorrow, do the same. Await the end of the foolishness. And that was it. There was a part of me that wished Andrea would wake up, quit her nonsense, and go home, but that was not going to happen. I had to accept the fact that she probably wouldn't be returning, at least not as the wife I had married or the person I had assumed to be her. It is likely that she was taking advantage of her newfound independence and discovering the thrill and affirmation as a woman that were absent from our union, factors that, according to psychologists, encourage married women to deceive their husbands. I therefore made an effort to go on a date without coming across as overly desperate or as someone who is just being weird. Before asking one of the women out on a date, I wanted to get to know the other members of my cycling group. I didn't want this to be a date of sympathy. My cycling friends were well aware of my divorce from my wife, and I'm sure some of them even knew that Andrea was seeing other men on a regular basis. Since this was a small city and everyone knows one another, the juicy rumors eventually spread. I was shocked when Diane, a woman I asked out for a drink and some food, accepted my invitation. On Saturday night, I wanted to go out to a nice place where we could just hang out without having to think too much about it. I had arranged for us to go kayaking on the lake outside the city before we had dinner. I knew how to do things because I had done a lot of kayaking a few years prior. Diane said that she had never gone kayaking, but I assured her that it's a lot of fun. It was a date because she expressed how much she would like to give it a try. Following the activity would be the food and drink. It proved to be an excellent experience. Diane had a great time kayaking. It took us about 3 hours to cover only about 10 miles. After that, we headed to a classy restaurant for a satisfying meal and a drink. I had a steak and some French fries along with a nice local craft beer because I enjoy beer. Diane had a low-key, casual meal of pasta and likes to drink white wine. We had some ice cream at a stand on the boardwalk by the waterfront after we were done. I told her I had a great time as I drove her home. She leaned in and kissed my lips when I was about to give her a cheek kiss. It was wonderful and unanticipated. I waited to set up another date until I saw her at the usual Tuesday cycle meetup so as not to come across as overly eager. She told me, somewhat to my surprise, that she assumed I hadn't had a good time when I hadn't called her. I quickly informed Diane that the situation was completely reversed. I thoroughly enjoyed our activities and had a great time, especially spending time with her. We scheduled a golf date for this coming Saturday. I've read online that there's a thin line between being too textual and too callous if you want someone to be interested in you. Women will shy away from men who constantly text and call them because they are perceived as being overly needy. I texted Diane on Friday to let her know that I was excited to play golf with her on Saturday and to ask what time I could pick her up, if that was okay. That allowed her to meet me if she wanted to at the golf club. We scheduled the time for early afternoon because she asked me to please pick her up. The golf course was a lot of fun for us. We had a great time, but neither of us will ever be professional golfers. We had dinner at my house that night. We opened a bottle of wine and had a barbecue. I was going to take her home after dinner, but she grabbed the car keys from me, put them on the kitchen counter, and asked to see the bedroom instead. It was getting late. I woke up the following morning to find a stunning woman lying on my chest with her arm around me. Diane has perfect skin, gorgeous green eyes, and long, dark hair. She had a bicycle accident, leaving a tiny scar on her chin, but it adds character to her lovely face. She is thin and tall, standing at around 5 feet 11 inches. She is in incredible shape and weighs maybe 140 pounds when wet. She is employed by the hospital in the pediatric child unit as a nurse. She demonstrates her compassion for people in everything she does. She strikes me as sincere. I was drawn to her from the moment I met her because of a certain something about her. After breakfast on my patio, we talked about me and my plans. Was I going to get a divorce? It was obvious where that topic was headed, so it was sensitive. Diane was not ready to commit herself fully to me until she knew what I had planned. That was a justifiable inquiry. Which woman would want to invest time in getting to know a man who will only be reconciling with his divorced wife in a few weeks? Diane's expression told me what I already knew when I explained to her the strange way Andrea had given her explanation for leaving. She assumed Andrea was not coming back. I believe I required that slight prodding to proceed to the following section of my plan. I called my lawyer on Monday morning, asking her to send an investigator to look into the matter. I was curious as to how many men Andrea was sleeping with before I served her with divorce papers. She was seeing a number of guys, most of them were married, and after they left different bars and clubs around town, they would return to Jessica's apartment to party. Andrea received service of the divorce petition 2 weeks later. That was the start of the fun. That evening, she took a car to the house to visit me. I picked up the doorbell. My wife, who is no longer with me, was holding a sizable brown envelope. Her face was filled with distress. "Andrea, what brings you here tonight?" "Hey, I got these documents delivered to me today by this guy." "You filed for divorce, but why?" "I promised you I would return home shortly. I even know that this week is my return home. We can get to work on the baby we discussed." I invited her inside to take a seat in the kitchen. "Andrea, it's a little late for that. You left even though I told you not to, even though I didn't want you to. Honey, I told you that I need to find out who I was and feel good about myself." I laughed a little. "So, do you think well of yourself? As a woman, are you given enough validation? Have you given enough thought to your sexuality? Have you looked into forming new relationships? Have you interacted with any interesting people? Have your mouth and glory hole produced enough large dicks?" I was going to lose it. "Since it appears to me that you have. Since you left our house, I haven't heard from you very often. I wasn't contacted by you on my birthday. That's because during that week in the Dominican Republic, you were cheating on one of your boyfriends. I received a call from your mother asking why you hadn't given her a call on Mother's Day. Have you, Jesus, been getting drilled on your back the entire time? Honey, I love you very much, and I can see that I might have gone a bit too far, so I'm coming home today." "No, you're not." What are you talking about, honey? I'm returning home today because I'm still your wife and this is still my home. I'll be returning to Jess's place in a few hours to pick up my belongings. You're not, that's for sure. Have you gone over every document in that package? A judge's order prohibiting you from approaching this house for 500 feet until the divorce is finalized is visible at the back. You are therefore technically in breach of the court order as of right now. I won't be critical now, but you really should get out of here so that we can talk about the specifics in court. Andrea was starting to understand that when I said things like love, honor, cherish, faithfulness, and that little bit about not playing around with other men, I really meant it. Andrea, this house has no meaning for me. It's okay if that's what you want. My half of it is almost paid for, so that's about $150,000. You can have it all for that small amount. We can sell it and divide the proceeds if you don't want to spend that much money. It is that easy, but you are not going back at this time, not while I am here. I led her to the door, pulled it shut, and secured it. After a month, we completed the divorce amicably without having to appear in court. Since Andrea had a legal right to half of our possessions, she took it. The residence was sold. Andrea returned to her new routine and I moved on. I was informed by a friend that the charter school where she worked had given her advice to be a little more reserved in her social life. It appears that some of the parents did not want her teaching their kids because they knew she was seeing a lot of men in the neighborhood. The mothers of the children were the ones complaining most frequently, and they were more honest about the skank that their children were being taught in private. She may have been in love with some of the fathers of the children. She later learned that she had an STD, which meant she wouldn't be able to have sex for roughly a year. It wasn't a fatal disease. Given that she was already pregnant, that wasn't really a big deal. Apparently, one of her beauties had completed the task. She no longer made the men use condoms, drank too much alcohol too frequently, and had become negligent about taking her birth control pill. The father, who remained anonymous, bore a striking resemblance to a married teacher who taught at her school. I had officially divorced Andrea, and I was free. Almost a year has passed since the beginning of Andrea's antics. In addition to getting a promotion at work and buying a new house, the biggest news is that Diane and I are now cohabitating. We are excited to share the news that we will be parents by Christmas and that we will be getting married this summer. Please feel free to express your opinions in the space provided for comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.